talk about it a little more with one of the wisest people we know. Fox senior political analyst Britt Hume joins us tonight. Britt, thanks so much for coming on. What did you make of that? What was your view of it?
Well, I think he's essentially saying something that's not terribly different from what the president and Governor Cuomo have been saying, which is that what we're living in now, this circumstance as we try to beat this virus, is not sustainable. That the utter collapse of the country's economy, which many think will happen if this goes on much longer, is an intolerable result. And that he is saying, for his own part, that he'd be willing to take a risk of getting the disease if that's what it took to allow the economy to move forward. And he said that because he's late in life, that he'd be perhaps more willing than he might have been at a younger age, which seems to me to be an entirely reasonable viewpoint. Now, I guess a lot of people think that, as your previous guest just suggested, that, any kind of risk with anybody's life is intolerable. And I think, we live with the risk of seasonal influenza every year, and thousands upon thousands die from it. But we do not, as has been pointed out, shut down the economy to combat it. Now, look, the mortality rate from this is higher enough that it makes it alarming. So it's obviously a much more a special kind of case. But there we are. We don't shut down the economy to save every single life that's threatened by a widespread disease. We just don't.
Why do you think saying that, what you're saying is factually true. There's no precedent for doing that. And we've faced a lot of epidemics over the years. I'm not even taking a position on where we ought to go next. But just stating that out loud, why do you think that enrages so many people? Sincerely.
Well, I can't know that. I can't read the minds of people I don't know. But there's one thing I do suspect in all of this in terms of the reactions to it. We are living in a country in which people's reactions to nearly everything have something to do, when you drill down, with how they feel about Donald Trump. And to the extent that what the lieutenant governor said on your air last night is similar to, in overall message, to what Donald Trump has been saying, I think some of the reaction to it may flow from that.
It's such a shame, because this moment isn't about Donald Trump, it's about us. It's about the rest of the country. So, maybe we should focus on that,
Well, if you're, and think of it this way, Tucker, if you're covering this coronavirus as a story in Washington, probably the best single place to go for information is the Daily White House Briefing. Now, Trump says all kinds of stuff, and he brags about what a great job he and his team are doing, and some of the stuff he says doesn't really advance your knowledge of the virus and its state of affairs within this country. But the people he brings with him do. And if you sit there and listen to it, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about the disease. You learn a lot about how they're trying to combat it. You learn a lot about what numbers to watch. For example, I've been fixated for some days now on the death rate, because the death rate is something that you can compare with other countries. We're on about a par now with South Korea, which is thought to have done a great job in combating the virus. So far, we seem to be doing fairly well, and it does suggest that maybe these things that we're doing are helping. You don't get that kind of analysis, however, from the journalists who are covering those briefings, by and large. Our own John Roberts does fine, but a lot of the rest of them are just looking for ways to pick at Trump, and it seems to me to be, childish, silly.
And certainly beside the point in the current moment, I would say. Britt Hume, great to see you so much. Thanks.
Thanks, Tucker.
Well, no part of the economy is getting hit harder right now than our restaurants. Two of America's most famous chefs and restaurant owners, Wolfgang Puck and Thomas Keller, join us after the break to talk about how to save that industry, which is a massive employer and vital.